Yeah, but
Your Excellency, Governor Songo, I salute you. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen. First, Governor, I have to first commend you on your choice of commissioner and your choice of chairman of the Regulatory Commission. I believe that progress starts with quality manpower, and that's what you've done. My participation in this summit organized by your government is a homecoming for me. As the special presidential advisor on power and chairman of presidential task force on power, I led a team that developed the roadmap for power sector reform, and it was launched here in Lagos on the 26th of August 2010 at a hotel by President Jonathan. And as Minister of Power in 2012, I had the honor to commission a 10 megawatts gas plant built by the government of Lagos State under Governor Fashona's leadership to provide electricity to the key establishments on Lagos Island and other places. There is a most important step which the Commissioner mentioned that Lagos State took 2 decades ago to provide what most Nigerians may be forgetting, the radical step it took to bring Enron, then the biggest electricity power trader in the United States, to participate in power generation in Nigeria. That was the very first of such. So on August 1, 1999, less than 4 months after the inauguration of democratic government in Nigeria, Governor Bola Tinubu, as he then was, caused Yinka Fulaweo Power and Enron of the United States to sign an agreement to supply 230 megawatts from batteries mounted near Eben power plant in the group, with the federal government as the guarantor. The federal government, through NEPA, was by law in absolute control of power generation, transmission, and distribution. So it was a very, very important step to have been able to take that step where private sector was now able to provide electricity. The Lagos State's bold move reminds me of my own experience around the same time. My team and I at Kilometric Power signed an agreement with the federal government in 2000 to build an emergency power plant in Abuja, which was embedded in a ring-fenced electricity distribution network in the central area of Abuja. That project supplied reliable electricity to the whole area, including the presidential villa, NNPC headquarters, central bank, federal secretariat, and so on. It made us to approach the federal government to sign an MOU in 2004 for the Aba ring-fenced area comprising of 9 of the 17 local governments of Abia State. This MOU eventually metamorphosed to a substantive agreement that resulted in the ring-fence of what has now become the 12th electricity distribution company in Nigeria. Now, all this happened before Power Reform Act, the first act which came in 2005. Well, still, despite its history of participating in the development of power sector, the Lagos State government studied the situation carefully before deciding to leverage on the 2023 Power Sector Act, which the Commissioner spoke about. This act obviously permits states to operate their own electricity markets through the creation of their own electricity regulatory commissions. I assume that Lagos State government did study the experiences of River State and Akwa Ibom State, which had gone ahead to set up their own power plants, but eventually River State, for example, has had to privatize its own power, and I believe that Akwa Ibom State is considering. So the reason why I talk about it is the plan of building about 4,000 megawatts. And the good thing is to augment what the power Lagos State gets. One of the good things is the study that Lagos by itself needs at least 6,000 megawatts. Now, so by building this power station, that's another bold move on part of Lagos to move forward and not be held back by the nation. I must tell you, it's going to be difficult for the federal government itself to actually build the required power in Nigeria in the way the model that had been followed. It requires private sector to be able to do it with government enabling it. Now, there are two things about, I would say about the build-up of power in Lagos State. One is, you would have learned what River State Akwa learned. And the second is that you now are able to audit and know how much power actually is required in Lagos State. So imagine how much power that is actually required in the whole nation. It's tremendous. So, and yet, what we are doing is talking about generating less than 6,000 megawatts. I'm also glad to hear that the existing electricity distribution companies operating in Lagos, that is the Ikeja and the Co, are now setting up subsidiaries. This is very important because the size of disputes in Nigeria is so big. For example, Ibadan, Benin, and so on, they're just so big, very unwieldy. You need smaller disputes or franchises so that they are able to be operated. So I'm not sure what it is that you plan, but I imagine that you could have for a co, Victoria Land, Ikoyi, etc., in areas of smaller disputes, whereby your embedded power, which I believe is what you're planning, will now essentially do what we have learned. That emergency power we did in Abuja was reliable because it was embedded. It didn't have to go to national grid. The one that we have in our back is embedded power, so it doesn't have to go to national grid, and consequently, reliable. That one, I know, it's not an Einsteinian idea. It is a very simple, intuitive approach. So, I commend the state for thinking in this way, and because your plan, I believe, brings your electricity distribution in Lagos closer to what we have in Aba, the Aba model, which is working. So many state governments are establishing their own regulatory commissions and are thinking of building power plants and establishing disputes. In effect, some of them, not Lagos State anyway, are reversing the privatization of the power sector without knowing that that's actually what they're doing. They should note that the federal government failed to run such a model. Therefore, how could states, with the level of resources they have, be able to do it. There are a whole number of issues associated with this, which we may not be able to get into now. But you have issues of subsidy, you have issues of being able to pay the GENCOs, which the federal government currently has, running in trillions of naira debt, because either you accrue the debt or you pay it. And if you have to pay 200 billion monthly to dispose, that will be quite a challenge. And then so if you divide it according to the states, what the shares should be. So, what this Lagos state is doing, we have to provide millions of Nigerians who don't have electricity with the product. Currently, we have about 80 million Nigerians who have no access to electricity. And this is unacceptable in the 21st century. Look at Algeria, which has just a small fraction of the natural gas that we have, is providing electricity for all of its citizens. So the journey of energy for all starts with a few things, like being able to have the fuel. I can tell you that I believe that in the next 20 years, natural gas will be the fuel to power power plants. And if that is the case, then we happen to have been blessed by the Almighty with about 210.5 trillion cubic feet of gas. So if we are blessed with that, which makes us about the 9th largest reserve in the world, then we have to get that. We have to be able to produce it. If we're not able to produce this, and we have it, then we are not going to be able to develop power plants. Then we're not going to be able to prosper as a nation. And GDP growth, we should know that for any country, the GDP, as the GDP is growing, the energy support must also be growing year on year. Go and check. For China, for example, every single year as it's growing, it is adding electricity year on year. This is what we have to do. So, I think that because of time, I will just leave it like this and say that we have an opportunity, tremendous opportunity, with the states that now have ability to regulate electricity within their domain. It's not that they didn't have capacity to build power plants, but the entire value chain was not within their control. So I thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, sir. Now, ladies and gentlemen, clearly stated is the need for collaboration between the private and public sector, as the power and energy that is required for